Hey guys, it's me, Kelly. I am so excited about this interview. I might be more excited this interview than any of the ones I've ever done in my entire life. I'm going to be introducing you to Mark Sargent in just a minute. This interview kind of was on accident, is what I told you guys. I asked you, who do you want me to interview? And a lot of you said, interview Mark Sargent, Mark Sargent. So I'm like, okay. And I was asking for 20 interviews at one time, and I trust you guys, and I didn't quite look too closely and at what Mark was doing, and I asked him, and he agreed, and we set the date, and then I started to watch the videos, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is on the flat Earth. Oh my goodness, what have I done? What do I do now? So I thought I'm going to watch all these videos and see what he has to say, because I like for people that have different opinions or different perspectives to present their information, because you never want to trust everything that you see. You want to question everything. So I thought this will be a great idea to question everything. So as I was watching his videos, something happened, and it was almost like a remembering that when I died and came back, there was a lot of stuff that didn't quite make sense. And I didn't really know to turn back around and look at the planet that I was on to see what it looked like, because I assumed it was round. There were a lot of questions that I had, excuse me, allergy time. A lot of questions I had, because I did some remote viewing, and we already got a ton of questions already coming up. Remote viewing and astral projection, and I had seen some things, and that was like, okay, if the Earth is a sphere, why would it look kind of like that from the inside of the Earth? Why am I only seeing a section of some type of holographic projector projecting, but it wasn't like I could see completely in this round sphere. So there were so many things that I had questions about, that when I was watching the series that Mark put out, and I encourage all of you to go watch this series. I'm going to have a link to his channel below in the description. And I was watching it, and everything just started to clear up, all these questions I had when I died and came back. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've never remote viewed the Earth. I need to go do that and see what's going on. The last video, he was concluding with everything, and I've got my cry towel. I just started to cry. I started to cry, because all of these things that I was so confused about for the last 4.5 years suddenly became clear to me. And it was like, okay, now I don't have to stress out about all this information anymore. So I cannot wait to introduce you to Mark Sargent. And without further ado, here he is. Say hello, Mark.
Hey, Kelly. Nice to be here. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I mean, now that I know what you're doing, I would have had you on a long time ago. I had no idea.
And you're the first person, by the way, that excuse me, that if I'm not mistaken, that actually invited me onto your show or onto a show without actually viewing the videos.
Well, that's because I have highly intelligent fans, and I trust them. I really trust them, and they trust me too. So based on just them telling me, so many of them telling me to interview you, I was compelled to interview you and trusted that you had something of substance. So that's why I did it. And then I was like, oh crap, flat Earth, really? But when you get through all of those videos that you put out, and it's not very long, when you put all the videos together, it's just like sitting down and watching a movie.
Yeah, it's not even a couple hours.
Yeah, it doesn't take very long at all. And it was very enjoyable. And just the whole time you're going, that's why that happens. Oh, now I understand. And then everything all of a sudden that you learn in school just seems ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree.
And I can't remember what video it was that I was watching, but it was before you showed an actual map. Because I was thinking, how do you handle this? You got north, the North Pole, south, the South Pole. I'm thinking of a spherical, Earth.
Yeah.
And if, everybody's going south and you get to the South Pole, how can it just not be there? And how can there be and then it was like, oh, if you have a ring around a plate, or, I'm sorry, we have sirens going off all the time. If you have a ring around the plate, and all the continents in the middle, and you've still got what you call south, going towards the South Pole. If you have an ice barrier around everything, every time you go south, you hit an ice barrier, no matter where you are on the planet. So it was like, I saw the map in my head before I I saw the map in your videos. That was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, that clue was called the map makers. That was number 3. And you're absolutely right, because the North Pole, if you think of it as a circular map, excuse me, the North Pole is the bullseye, and then the South Pole is just the outer ring. It's the edge of the target. So everywhere you go, no matter which direction you go, eventually you're going to hit the South Pole. Yeah, which is fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. So how many years did you think that the Earth was actually a sphere?
Most of my life, like anybody, we've been conditioned our entire lives since grade school to think this, and I never gave it a second thought. And I kicked myself because I had a chance to find it 15 years ago when I realized, when it was put right in front of me, that there were no pictures of the Earth from space. That NASA literally, this was year 2000. The only picture of the internet of the Earth from space was that grainy shot with a lot of cloud covering, with Africa and all of Antarctica, and that was the only one out there. And that shows you how well conditioned we are. It was sitting right in front of me, and the only thing I could think of was that NASA sucks, and they as far as the internet goes, they are late to the game. And I was so angry. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to put a globe on any pictures, any of the computer monitors. So I'm not going to do it. And then it completely skipped past me. And literally only last year did I really start looking at it. And I looked at it really, really hard. And the more I tried to tear it down, the more I was foiled. The more I was convinced it's like this. It's to the point where there was this moment where everything shifted, which was, okay, it's not that I'm trying to prove it's flat anymore. I'm trying to prove it's a globe. And I was losing badly to the point where it's like, there nothing I could do could bring it back to a globe. And then and then I sat on it for a while and thought about it, and then had that moment, back in February, where I just woke up in the middle of the night and I had the whole thing in my head, the beginning clues, and one after another, they just kept coming. To where I just laid them out with some structure, and it really resonated with people. And I couldn't be more thrilled. It was not my intention to gain popularity on this. It was just a point of view, and it is really the positive energy that's been coming at me, and the amount of people that have been saying great things has been fantastic.
Yeah, my idea of being popular was, being a great singer and everybody loving it, instead of, hey, I died and things are not quite what you think they are.
Yeah, it's funny how that'll change things, won't it?
It changes everything, that's for sure. Yeah. One thing that I find is really, really interesting, and I think is an advantage for you, and the ones who have followed me for a while know my made up vocabulary at this point, because when you die and you come back, you have no vocabulary for what just happened to you. So you have to go out and search for a vocabulary. Now, I am not one to do video games. I don't play video games. I never allowed my kids to play video games. I was a dyslexic specialist and dealt with ADD, ADHD, dyslexia and high functioning autistic kids. And, for reasons for brain development and all that, I just never let my kids do it. So I wasn't very familiar with computer games or video games. That is your specialty. Yes. So when I came back, I died and I came back, and I'm like, how do I describe what we're doing here? I don't know how to describe it. So you're going to laugh, I had to research video games to see what video games were all about. Yeah. And during the process of developing a vocabulary, and what my term for what we're doing here is a very sophisticated holographic video game, and where you have limitations and restrictions and all of that that goes along with it. Yeah. So then finding out that you develop or produce video games was like, no wonder he figured this out. How was that an advantage I see how it was an advantage, but how do you think it was an advantage in figuring it out?
And you're right. I was kind of late to the game in figuring it out. I mean, yeah, considering my background, but I was so distracted because, well, first I was one of the few people I know of that actually played games, computer games professionally. That's how I initially got to Colorado. I was recruited by a game publisher, back in the late 90s to be signed on as a ringer. So when I came out here, I initially went and played games I went to all the conventions, Macworld, San Francisco and Boston and E3, and I would make the games look better than they were. But more than that, I got to play everything. At the time, there weren't as many games as there are now, but I got to play everything and determine what was good, what was not good, what we should bundle with. And so, yeah, from the ins and outs, and plus I loved playing games. So for me, it was always about, figuring out the system, figuring out, the exploits and what worked and what didn't work and what was good design and what was bad design. And once I got out of games, then I got into proprietary software training and did a lot of bug testing, for time and attendance software. I stayed in the tech industry and did a lot of software stuff. But in my spare time, I kept playing a lot of games, and always, just loved anything with great design. So when I was starting to look at this thing, yeah, I broke it down like a game, and that was from a design standpoint. You don't treat it that much different, and we're not going to get into much into the divinity aspect of it, but it's like, look, even God has to write in code. There are certain things that have to be laid out. A structure has to be built. And if you want to call it the God code or whatever programming language, there's some really advanced stuff here. And I didn't touch on it much in the clues, because, defining reality, whether it be, I didn't touch on this in the clues. It's like, yes, this could be the Matrix. Yes, because this could be the 13th floor. Yes, this could be a holodeck from Star Trek: The Next Generation, because, defining matter and the energy and the molecules and everything that breaks up into it, you're getting into some weird semantics. But the design itself was flawless. There were so many efficient layers to it and efficiency functioning on multiple levels that as I was digging into it from a gaming standpoint, I just sat there and was going, wow, there's some really neat things going on here that just were just so impressive from a design standpoint. Everything from, when you're looking at it, and everything worked better in an enclosed circular flattish system. That was the part that stuck out the most to me, was that everything was very, very tight and compact and super efficient. So the continents, in the center of this, giant, it was mostly ocean, and a saltwater ocean, which was only 3% salt content, which did wonderful things. The temperature variations when you got to the outer edge, the temperature variations when you go up, the reduction of oxygen as you go up, just so many great little negative reinforcements things that what they do is, aside from, creating, it completely removes the illusion of the cage. People say, oh, you were in jail, we're in a prison. It's like, no, you're not in a prison if you don't know you're not, if you don't know it. And that is that you don't see the bars and you think that turning back from the edge because it's too cold is your decision, then it's not a cage anymore. It's just your world, and you can make it whatever shape you want. People said, oh yeah, it's a sphere. They could have said it was a square and people would have bought it if you throw in the right math. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, when I came back, before I died, I don't know if it was remote viewing or astral projection. I think I did a little bit of both before I died, but it was very, very limited. And when I died and came back, it was like, oh, I can do this automatically, go and look everywhere. So yeah, I never looked at planet Earth. So I think it was last week. I don't remember what day I talked to you, but it was a couple days before I talked to you, because I wanted to go look for myself and see what the Earth looked like. Sure. So I prepared myself, and it wasn't like, I'll just go look and see what it looks like. You have to go, my whole world might be turned upside down. I need to get ready for this. So that's the kind of preparing that I needed before I looked. Yeah. And when I looked, this was on one of the videos that I did in a Q&A. Here is what I saw. Now, this is, I guess, maybe what it looks like from the inside. I don't even know how to describe this, but this is kind of the general shape that I got. Yeah. But as a silhouette from the side. Now, it goes down a little more pointed than this. I just kind of lost paper at the bottom. And I always put out a warning before I draw anything. But I saw the Earth, and we had talked about this, calling it the flat Earth, because it wasn't truly flat. It was kind of like a pancake that has a little bit of a rise to it, if you will.
Sure.
But underneath, I found a picture, and I think it's one that you had in your videos, of the Earth on top, and it looked almost like a diamond shape at the bottom that was made out of dirt.
Yeah, that's the picture I usually end the clues with. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, maybe that's what I'm going to see. But this appeared, and it was along the lines of a crystal city. And I've seen lots of crystal cities, lots of colors, blue and white, clear, red. But I'd never seen a dark one, kind of like smoky quartz. But it appeared to be like a dark crystal city underneath. And what is underneath in space, really? If they're up and we're down.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no perspective there. Absolutely. And I've got to do a disclaimer for you. Hold that picture up one more time.
Oh, okay. Okay.
For those in your audience, Kelly has never seen The Signal, a movie that didn't make a lot of money last year, but at the end of The Signal, and I'll do a spoiler for you guys. You find out.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. The kids find out that they're in an enclosed world, floating out in space, and the very last scene of that is when they pull back and they show that very scene right there, where it's a dome type city with a very pointed crystalline mechanical structure underneath that points down. And I haven't sent you the picture yet, but after the show, that's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to download it. I'm going to send it to you. You're going to freak out when you see it, because that's exactly what it looks like.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to share that on Facebook. So all my peeps on Facebook, get ready for a picture.
But yeah, if you want to go past her drawing, just all you have to do is watch the literally the last 2 minutes of the movie The Signal, which came out just last year. Lawrence Fishburne was in it, in case you want to look it up by actor.
I'm going to see if I can rent that. I think they've got it at Redbox.
Yeah. I mean, most of the movie's okay. I mean, it's pretty good, but the last 20 minutes is just amazing of that movie. And I for science fiction fans, I highly recommend it. And if you're into the enclosed world, flat Earth type thing, you got to check out the last 5 minutes of that thing. It's really cool.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Another thing, because you were talking about game creation and creating an enclosed system, like if you did it, what would you do?
Yeah.
And I did watch the movie Dark City. I'd seen it a long time ago, and I completely forgot all the details. I found it on YouTube, and I watched it the other night and remembered. But that is how I teach people how to manipulate the weather. How to take a tornado and basically spin it the other direction and dissipate a tornado, dissipate hurricanes, how to make it rain. I teach people how to do that. And when I saw the movie Dark City, are you familiar with the movie Dark City?
Oh, very familiar with the movie Dark City. Not only do I reference it in Clue, which Clue was that? Shell Beach. Oh yeah.
Yes, that's why I looked it up again, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this relates to more than just manipulating the weather. Let me see what he's talking about.
Yeah. I actually called my clue Shell Beach based off of the mythical thing in Dark City, and that is you can never get to Shell Beach. So yeah, no, Dark City is a fantastic movie. I mean, yes, the enclosed system is a little small because it's only as big as a city instead of giant vast area. But love that movie.
So I was using, if you call them psychic abilities or a higher level of awareness, to manipulate the weather. And it was really, really difficult. And suddenly when I was watching the movie Dark City, it was like, wait a minute. What if I treat this as if where we're living is just like in that movie, where it's controlled with something, mechanical or technological, and your mind is used to control that technology. And I'm going to visualize it that way and control the weather. And suddenly I was able to control the weather better. I was like, wow. So people who are psychic, they can see how this is absolutely possible just from a psychic standpoint of being able to do this.
Yeah.
So, incredible. We've got some questions already coming.
Okay.
Yeah, if you guys want from beginning to end, this interview is not about, he's going to explain from beginning to end about the theory, which I don't think is a theory anymore. I think it's kind of proven in my court, it's proven. But if you want all the details, I'm going to have the link below, and you can go and watch from the beginning and watch it all. My husband, who I call a caveman in clothes, He's the one that he is the last person to believe anything. You know, he holds out till the bitter end with believing stuff. And when I watch it, because when I was watching video number 1, and he's like, oh, flat Earth really is full of crap. So he went off in his shed and, you know, did his caveman stuff. And then I just kept watching. I'm like, I don't care about your attitude. I'm going to keep watching. So I think I was on video 3 or so. Which I think was number 2, because there was almost like an introduction video, then video 1 and 2. So I think it was on.
Number 1 was the empty theater. Number 2 was the bird wall. Number 3 was map makers. Yeah.
So I think it was about the bird wall. He came back in, and I'm like, I'm not changing what I'm watching just because he came back in. And if he says anything, I'll tell him he could just go back in his little cave and have some fun. But he started watching it, and he was like, oh my gosh. And we were several videos through, and he was like, how did I not see this? You know, This is my very logical husband that resists everything that he learned growing up. And
wow. If you would have asked me in 2013, if somebody would have walked in, you know, if I would have been in a bar and somebody said, oh yeah, you ever heard about the flat Earth? I would have laughed him out of the room. I would have said, what are you talking about? Because again, it shows you how well done it is. You know, I mean, 99.9% of the population, you know, is just, wow, you've got a mug as big as mine.
Oh yeah. I've been known for having a big mug bigger than my face. Yeah.
Nice. But yeah, it's how well the conditioning is. And not only that, but there's a group of people, you know, like anything, like it's different from other conspiracies. Other conspiracies, it's like, well, if you look at 9/11 or Pearl Harbor or JFK and stuff like that, it doesn't affect people directly. It doesn't affect them in a visceral way. But this one, for the very obvious reason, and I'll steal from the Matrix here, you know, when Neo was told where he was, you know, he got really, really angry, you know, and he freaked out and passed out. And they said, look, we don't generally tell people after a certain age. And yeah, the older you are, in most cases, the more conditioning you've had. I mean, nobody wants to have their world messed with. I totally get that. So the response from some people, and you know, on just about every show, you'll get some people is saying, they get really, really angry. You know, they follow those 5 stages of acceptance, where the first response is denial, followed quickly by anger. And it's like, how dare you? I mean, I've had people tell me that. How dare you tell me what my world is? It's like, look, I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying, but they get rattled. You know, nobody wants to walk outside and all of a sudden look up and going, okay, where exactly am I right now? No, you know, it's weird for some people. So, but I get it. So no hate mail. It's all good.
Oh yeah, no hurt feelings either. Because this, you know, for some people, this is hard to swallow.
Absolutely it is. Oh, it was for me too. I started out trying to crush it. I thought for sure it'd be like, you know what? I'm just going to look at it. I'm going to find the holes in it and throw it out in a weekend. And then 9 months later, I'm staring at this thing, you know, with bloodshot eyes going, okay, maybe this weekend I'll figure out how to tear it down. And I couldn't. So
yeah, and you're a professional at being able to build and tear down, and you couldn't.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking for the flaws. Believe me, if there's flaws in something, if there's an exploit, if there's some weakness in the design, I will find it. And I couldn't do it.
Those that are psychic are finding glitches in time, glitches in, wait a minute, this person was supposed to be alive and they're dead, or they were supposed to be dead and they're alive. Yeah. There are some glitches that are happening right now that are some clues that, hey, we are dealing with the type of technology and this is not organic, so to speak.
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah, there seems to be, and maybe it's the right time. You know, maybe it is this time that, if you call it part of the design, call it deliberate, that we're supposed to, you know, the cracks are being found. And, you know, there's only so many cracks that can be found before all of a sudden, you know, the whole thing starts, you know, falling apart.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And before this interview, I gave you a little bit of a warning that they're already talking about on the Facebook how cute you are. How good looking you are.
I am not. I thank you. I appreciate the compliments, but I do not look in the mirror and go, "Ooh, yeah."
He's so humble.
Yeah,
he's so humble. Well,
I have never winked and pointed at the mirror and gone, "Yeah." Never done that.
You never Fonzied anybody.
No, I have never Fonzied anybody. Good reference.
Let's see. We have Mark Myres. Mark is able to move objects with his mind. I've interviewed him on my show, and he has several videos of moving objects. So his name is Mark as well. So that might be question number one. How come every Mark I've ever met is so dashingly handsome?
Thank you. Again, I am currently single. Not because of the flat Earth thing, but just because I haven't really met the right person recently. Yeah. But
there you go,
but I am still looking. How's
there
that?
You go. Fabulous. And question number two, which that wasn't really a question. No. Just stating the obvious. Let's see, what's the difference between the flat Earth theory and the hollow Earth theory? That's a good one.
No, that's a good one. And my model doesn't really conflict with it. In fact, I was a hollow Earth guy 10 years ago, to the point where I was actually, it's going to sound silly, but flat Earth, nothing sounds silly at this point. Where I actually went to Mount Shasta out in California and looked for cave entrances, because if you follow the flat Earth stuff, you'll see a lot of stuff about entrances in California. But the hollow Earth theory basically started with the same guy that was part of the flat Earth theory, and that was Admiral Byrd. Before he did all his stuff in Antarctica, he, in 1926, I believe, went to the North Pole. And the story goes that, he just, because he was his own pilot, he flew all his own missions. He flew to the North Pole and found some sort of opening. And this opening was quite large. And he went inside, and all of a sudden it became a journey to the center of the Earth type movie, where it was tropical, and there was animals, and there was a whole nother civilization in there, and then he spent time with them, and they let him fly out, and that was really great. The lesser known story about the hollow Earth theory is that Charles Lindbergh. I won't go into it too much in depth now, but look up the story about the Charles Lindbergh, the guy that flew solo across the Atlantic Ocean, American hero, who eventually distanced himself from the United States. Look up Charles Lindbergh Hollow Earth theory, and you will find him referenced, and there's wonderful thing. But anyway, the point is, hollow Earth is that at the North Pole there is a whole entrance into a whole nother civilization and realm, whereas flat Earth really deals with stuff that's on the surface. But in my model, the two are actually fairly, there's no conflict. So you can have flat Earth and hollow Earth at the same time, because on a flat system especially, there's got to be something on the inside, and whether it's your crystalline, city type structure underneath, or it's something more organic, who knows? But absolutely, the two could exist together. So.
Yeah, when I was remote viewing or astral projecting, I don't know the difference after I died, but I went what I call inside planet Earth, and I saw a projector that was projecting a holographic video game, if that's still what you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I saw it, but I saw it like a section of it, if that made sense. And it was almost like everything else was dark. And I thought, well, maybe it's just dark in the rest of the sphere, and inside of it. And I only saw one section. So if this truly was, if I was inside the Crystal City, if you will, and I saw their technology and the projector, that would make sense that we've got a flat, or whatever you want to call it, enclosed system.
Yeah.
That was true instead of being a sphere. That answered that question for me, because when I went and looked, I'm like, okay, if that's a sphere and this is the middle of the sphere, why can't I see the rest of the inside?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it doesn't have to be, people keep forgetting that, and I'm trying to impress it on people that it doesn't have to be a sphere to work. In fact, a flattish enclosed sort of snow globe type system works way better than a globe. From an efficiency standpoint, especially if it's artificial. If you're trying to build something, like we build worlds in the gaming world now, they're not globes. They're flat things that are encased by something else with boundaries, but you don't know any different. You don't know. As long as you can create the illusion of a globe, then that's all you need to do. It's like, look, if you can, what is it? Fake it until you make it type thing. You pretend, you give the illusion that it's a globe, and as long as everybody buys it, that's great. That's all you have to do. And no different than if you've ever been to a planetarium, or people have been to a planetarium. Look, if you're lying on your back in a planetarium, you're looking up, stars look pretty real. That's the whole point. But you're just in a big dome. Imagine if you made that thousands of miles wide. and it's at that point it becomes very, very easy. And I got to address this because people have been bugging me about this with questions. It's like, well, you get different star patterns depending on where you are in the globe. They spin one way, south of the equator, and they spin another way in the north. I'm going, okay, think of it this way. This is the easiest way I can come up with. Think of a planetarium. Now think of two of them. If you put two planetariums in the same structure, you can create the different star systems. It just depends where you are in the planetarium. So when it comes to the sky, you can create anything in the sky you want. There is no limit when it comes to that. So if you want the sun to do a figure 8, you can. If you want to put a smiley face on the moon, you can. There's nothing from a design standpoint that is off limits. So there you go.
And that there is technology that we use today, that my computer screen over here, if I want to put something over it so that only I see what's on that computer screen and the person sitting over here cannot see it for privacy reasons or whatever, that technology already exists. So it is absolutely possible to have one dome, and over here, like if you're in the United States in Texas, over here, because of the way that the screen is tilted, I'm looking at the same place in the sky, but I'm seeing something totally different than these people over here that are looking at exactly the same place. Because that just makes sense to me from the stuff that we have on this planet.
It works because you can't be in two places at the same time. There's certain the system was designed with our weaknesses in mind, and I will eventually cover this when I release Clue 12. I've been holding off for a long time because I want to make sure it's the right time to do it. But it's almost like we were designed to believe the illusion. I'll give you an example here, because number 12 is going to be called real eyes, real space eyes, and it like, for example, if you've ever been stuck in traffic. And you're in stop and go traffic, and all of a sudden you zone out for a second, and you don't know if the car next to you is moving or you're moving. Everybody has this. There's been university studies done on it, and that is when it comes to relative motion, we as a species have a real weakness to that. We cannot tell the difference. So when they did a study and they put people in like fake cars in a university, right, and then they put a fake brick wall in front of them, they would either move the wall or they'd move the car, right? No one could tell what was moving. If it was you or the car. And so the point is, we are susceptible to illusion. It's why flight simulators work so well on us. It's why when you watch a movie of a roller coaster from a first person point of view and you're going down that roller coaster, it's why some people can't watch it because they get ill. It's like, what are you doing? You're watching an image of a roller coaster. You're not on the real roller coaster, but they would actually get sick watching, this whole thing. So it's not just the enclosed system was designed. It was designed for us specifically. So.
Oh yeah, they really knew about us.
Oh yeah. It's the perfect system for the perfect species in this case.
Yeah, if you're gonna put someone in your snow globe, you better know what's going on with them. Now this one, I'm not saying I could answer this, but I remote viewed and it makes sense to me. This question: whenever I go on a trip in a boat at sea, I always see the curved atmosphere, so I don't really understand how this world can be flat. And it's kind of like from what I showed you, I don't see it as exactly flat either. There's a curve that I saw to it. Am I off or am I?
No, not at all. In my model, it is not perfectly tabletop flat. And I know the Flat Earth Society and the International Flat Research Society and all the others disagree with me. But in my model, it's not perfectly flat. That's not to say that their models are, you have to throw them out. We still use the same maps, but there are curves on both sides. For me, there's a slight curve over the surface, and when it comes to the enclosure itself, of course, there's a curve. Now, what specifically they're talking about, you'd have to ask them. It's like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about clouds? Are we talking about something something in the sky that's in relation to the horizon? I'm not exactly sure, but you want to have fun. Take a look because it's been really trendy lately. take a look at all the weather balloon footage and compare like the NASA and the stuff they released to the news versus the amateur weather balloon footage. They both go up to about the same altitude, 120,000 feet. The balloons blow, but the cameras show very, very different things. The amateur stuff shows a flat horizon, whereas everybody else shows that fisheye lens stuff where it's very, very curved, including the very famous Red Bull one that they sent up recently.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
someone,
a big.
Someone posted that and said, "See, the Earth is a sphere."
Oh no! There's comparisons. Take a look. It all comes down to the lens, and I don't blame people for using the fisheye lens. It's an old type of technology, and it gives great perspective. Unfortunately, it completely distorts everything. Not only does it make a curve, it makes a severe curve, and it makes a curve also on the ground. It's it creates artificial curves.
Also, and I don't want to talk badly about people. I don't know a whole lot about the Flat Earth Society at all. Yeah. But in my opinion, if you join a group that agrees to a certain set of terms, you've already limited yourself into discovering anything new. That's my opinion. Not to insult anybody, but yeah, I don't participate and I don't join groups.
Me too. Because I try to keep my options open, because you lock yourself in. Nothing against the actual, nothing against those societies, but like the original Flat Earth Society, and I talked about this in one of my clues, there were people that were dedicated there to chasing off new members. And that part I couldn't understand, because I was going, look, from a trolling standpoint, if you want to troll, there are people that love to just hate people. And look, you can go on YouTube 24 hours a day and just destroy people all day long. Why in the world would you be hanging out at the Flat Earth Society? There's not that many members. So that kind of bothered me. It's like, okay, why would you be doing that unless that it's part of, you don't leave anything to chance. You don't want to let that give any traction. And then the Flat Earth Research Society, which broke off of them, they're doing their own thing. And I know Eric and I are still having problems to this day, which is fine. I'm still trying to reach out to them and try to patch things up. But at this point, we disagree on some points that I don't think, but neither of us are gonna change our views. So that's fine.
A lot of people probably don't know what you're talking about, but some of them that have done research went out there and probably found the video that you're referring to, and I found it as well. And the last thing we want to do is talk negatively about someone who's in the same place that you are, and you don't seem to be talking negatively about him. In fact, you seem to be complimenting him and everything that he's accomplished, and I refer to it as splitting hairs.
There you go.
But that's just what the argument is about, is splitting hairs. But if you know anything about hair and you get split ends, that's called damage. Yeah. And anytime that there's split ends, you've got damage. So we want to try and support each other. But some people do get their feelings hurt over small issues, and they put out videos. I know they've done it to me. I don't know how you feel, because mine are just from misunderstandings. They just see a title to the video and then think they know everything about me and just call me a witch and a Satanist and make videos. So, they don't even know who I am. They know what you're about and very specifically split those hairs. I can't even imagine how that felt.
Well, I wasn't that upset about it. It was just, what bugged me was they were such minor points. It's like, look, if from the flat Earth point of view, from the enclosed world's point of view, it's like, fine. Some people say there's a dome. Some people say there's not a dome. Some people say it's tabletop flat. Some people say it's a curve. But we all use the same azimuthal equidistant map with the continents in the center and the ice ring around the outside. We all use that map. So it's like, what are we fighting about? I mean, we're talking some awful things being said. It's like, like that I'm a government employee and, that I'm trying to break up the thing. It's like, well, look, I'm not trying to discredit anybody. Two, I'm not going to say anything bad about anybody because they're part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. It's like, look, Eric Dubé's videos, I still reference. I say, look, watch his videos. He's got some good stuff in it. Matt from the NASA channel's got some good stuff in there. Kelajagia, My Perspective. All the new people that have been coming out in 2015 doing all this stuff. Everybody's got some good stuff. So all I'm saying is, like, look, just, I'm not saying we should all join hands and sing Kumbaya and all that, but at the same time, let's not get into, if we agree to disagree, fine. Nobody should be throwing stones anywhere. It's precarious enough as it is. So that's I'm never gonna bash anybody. It's counterproductive, and I think it's moving in the right direction anyway. So it should settle down. sooner or later.
Mm-hmm. No, here's this question. I can't answer this question.
What?
I've watched some of the flat Earth videos, and they lack credibility from my perspective.
Okay.
Science confirms the spherical shape. You mean controlled science that you learn at school? I don't know. Even simple observations support it. And yes, there have been flights over the Antarctic.
Yep.
So can you hold all three questions in your hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic, whoever that is. And these questions,
Earth Sky Web posted that one. Thank you. Web.
These questions do not surprise me. And fantastic. You're never going to believe in it. Fine. If you're happy in your globe, more power to you. I can only say that eventually, and because look, if this sunk into everybody right away, I would be amazed. But there's a lot of people, and again, this comes down to the conditioning. If you go to school, and this, who knows, maybe this guy's got an astronomy background, maybe he's a scientist, because the more sciencey you are, the more into whatever scientific discipline, the more you're going to resist this, because the textbooks you have been reading, forget about high school, if you went on through college and studied a lot about geography and astronomy and astrophysics, then you're going to be even more conditioned to the point where the denial, you're going to be one of those people. It's like, if it ever comes out eventually, if it comes out that it's an enclosed system, you're going to handle it badly. You're going to be sitting in the corner, in a fetal position, wondering, with the lights out for a while. When it comes to the flights over Antarctica, though, because that was the big point he brought up there.
Okay.
Yes, of course they're going to claim that they have flights directly over Antarctica. They have to. But you got to remember, when they're flying over Antarctica, especially recently, the GPS system was designed to hide this thing from our point of view. No, I do not. There's somebody that asked me this the other day, and I love throwing this back at people. And I say, okay, fine. You can show me on a map, they'll say, oh yeah, people crossed from one end to the other of Antarctica. Here's the route they took. Here's the government they worked for. I'm going, that's fantastic. And then I throw up a picture of the moon, and I say, okay, here's a picture of the moon and all these little circles on it. And I have these in a couple of my videos. All these circles on it show where the Apollo missions landed, where they set up camp, where they drove their moon buggies. So do you believe that the Apollo missions happened? And because, that's been just blown, it's so full of holes at this point that I can't imagine anyone believes it anymore. And because you can't believe one without believing the other. So fine. If, for that guy, it's like, fine, you also believe in the moon missions. Great. We have nothing left to talk about at this point, because there's nothing I can do to convince you, because there's certain things you have to get past before you even look at Antarctica. And the first thing, which is why I really went into the clues with that, is the Apollo missions. And that is, you've got to look at NASA as a whole. NASA was created. The entire reason they were created, people say, oh, it was the Cold War, it was, missile technology. No, the entire reason they were created in 1958 was to keep this under wraps. No play on words there. To keep this, to keep the globe illusion alive. That's the only reason NASA was created, whether it was to take the picture or to militarize space or to keep private companies from going up there and doing their thing. Look, I'll give you a perfect example. SpaceX, they were having accident after accident after delay. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, hey, now they're delivering stuff to the space shuttle or to the space station. So what does that tell you? Well, it means they were finally rolled into the program. Someone went to them and said, oh yeah, by the way, you can't keep doing this. So what all they're doing now is they're faking SpaceX as well. I'm sorry, that was a long-winded version of how I should have answered that guy. But look, he's never going to believe it anyway. So
yeah, he's got several questions too that are very, very scientific. So if we've got time, we will tackle those. But we've got a lot of other people that have questions on here. This one, Jesus. Earth is a sphere. Look at pictures from space, is what he says. Now, I don't remember if it was your videos, if I saw this somewhere else, because I have seen some of Eric's videos and they are very good, his videos. But I saw from the window of a shuttle or I can't remember what it was, but it showed the Earth looking completely different. And then they were adjusting the lens. And as they adjusted the lens, it created a sphere.
Oh, that was probably from the Earth to the moon. A funny thing happened on the way from the Earth to the moon. there was some supposedly, and even that I think was faked at this point, was leaked footage supposedly from the astronauts that were trying to create a sphere of the Earth from outside of from a round window.
Yes, that's what yes, from a round window. That was it.
From a round window, and even then, you know, which I think was a fantastic layers of deception. Even that I think was faked, because there's no way. And the big reason was who they leaked it to. They leaked it to this guy. It's like, so they leaked it to, of all the people they could have leaked to, they leaked to this guy who made this, this documentary called "Funny Thing Happened from the Earth to the Moon." But to answer that guy's question right there, oh, there's pictures of the Earth from space. Really? Tell me which ones they are. I know you can look up on Google the Earth from space. Almost everything you see there is a composite image, and none of those images existed before 2004. So find me an actual NASA stamped image. And by that I mean find me more than one, because there is only one that has ever been officially sanctioned. The rest of them are admitted composite images. And for people that don't know what a composite image is, it's just layers, it's strips of images that are formed together with Photoshop or whatever you want to use to create a globe, a simulated globe. And they admit that. They'll admit that right up front and say, oh yeah, this is a composite, this is a composite, this is a composite. But there's so many composite images. And of course you throw in Google Earth, which is just a giant real-time composite image, that you can't actually find the NASA's images. And while I'm at it, I'm going to throw this at them too. It's like, fine, you think that's easy to do? Find me real-time videos of the Earth from space. By that, something that shows the Earth rotation. Find me those as well.
Oh, I've never seen one. Now, see, and this is part of the problem. You've got a public that's not very educated on these things, and the only education they get is from NASA.
Yeah.
But something's wrong, but you don't know what. And you're talking about a lot of details. Like show video where the Earth is turning. And I didn't realize I've never seen one of those.
There's so very few, and the famous one that they showed, which of course Matt from the NASA channel just destroyed, was that he was the first one to pick up on it because he's an artist by trade. Was that it showed a 24-hour rotation of the Earth from space, but the clouds didn't move, the weather didn't change. And clouds move real fast in a 24-hour period. They move across the screen, and the clouds weren't changing, so which meant it was a composite image that was just put into a rotation routine. And again, and people, they don't understand. It's like, look, there's supposedly thousands and thousands of satellites up there. With the technology we have right now, there should be dedicated real-time 24/7 coverage of the Earth from space. Mm-hmm. There should be a web channel, there should be a television channel that you turn it on and all you're seeing is the Earth from space in a rotation from a geosynchronous orbit. That's you should see this all the time. We can't get anywhere close to that. They can't, because it can't be faked. Unfortunately, the internet hive mind that finds everything, and by that I mean, look up moviemistakes.com. The internet will find mistakes in everything. For people who don't know what moviemistakes.com is, there are nerds out there that will find every single mistake frame by frame in every movie or television show that's ever been made. So if a coffee cup moves from one side of the screen to the other before the scene changes, supposedly, then they'll catch it. Do you really think they're going to miss anything when it comes to government footage? No, not a chance.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, there's so much to ask. How do you explain time zones on a flat Earth, and why do flat earthers claim that the Earth is encased in a protective dome?
Okay, that's a two-part question. I'll answer the last one first, and that is, not all flat earthers believe that it's encased in a protective dome. I do, for several reasons. The first one is, from a design standpoint, it's about the most obvious I can make it for you. You do not want to let a population like ours out of here. We are, if you watch enough science fiction movies, and look, this is not me being negative in anywhere, but we are a mess when it comes to, by that I mean men. You do not want men rampaging around outside of this system. There's been several science fiction movies that said, yeah, we do not want human beings, running around the cosmos and doing things. But from a design standpoint, you could do a lot more with an enclosed system. You can handle the airflow, the jet stream a lot better. You can handle the sky a lot better. as far as simulating, the stars and handling the, the sun and the moon. Everything works better in a closed in dome system. That's the short version, and I won't go into it too much because I know we got lots of questions. But what was the first part? Was
how do you explain time zones?
Oh yeah, time zones.
Which we had a problem with today.
People have been bringing that up lately, and I think that's because remember, time zones are based on the sun. I think people are asking that wrong, and that is remember, time zones are based off of where the sun is in the sky. So if you're asking me how the sun is curving around the sky without lighting up everything at the same time, then which is why in my model it has got some slight curves to it. Remember, if the sun is rotating above this circular system, and it's not a directional light, obviously the sun shines in a lot of different directions at the same time, then if it's got a slight curve at the center of it, that handles. There's some animations out there. You can find them online on YouTube that'll show it a little bit better. But that's how it happens. So if there's a slight curve at the center, it handles the sunrise and the sunset much more elegantly than a tabletop flat surface. That's how I would do it. But I think that's what they're asking, is that how can you talk about how can time zones exist if the sun is shining everywhere at the same time, and it's not, obviously. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a question about that too. You answered it. Yay.
There is an animation out there, and if people can't find it, because it's been used, it's not mine. I don't know who made it, but if people want to email me, I will send them the animation for it. I've got it on my machine, and I've got it in a real short snippet, so I can fire it off to them.
Oh, that's cool, because a lot of people are very visual, and it's hard when you're just talking about it to visualize it. Sometimes when they see, like you're saying.
Yeah,
something actually moving, then it's like, bing, it makes sense.
The animation does it a lot more justice. Let's put it that way.
Now on the dome, this is something I had asked you about. Mark and I talked a few days ago. And it was like I didn't want to get off the phone, but I had to go make dinner or something. So I was like, this is the most interesting conversation on the planet. When I died and I popped out of my body, I popped through what I call a membrane. And it was like the Earth, from that perspective, when I popped out and looked back, the Earth appeared to be curved. But I was looking at it through a dome, or what I thought at the time. This is assuming that, because I wasn't fully awake. When you first die, you're not fully awake. And you're just going like, okay, who am I? Where am I? Oh, and then you start to wake up and remember who you are and what you were doing. So I described it as the Earth being here, and then a ball, if you will, around the Earth, made out of material kind of like sunglasses.
Nice.
That's very, 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 very dark. And I asked you, is it possible? Because when I remote viewed the Earth from the side, the what looked like a crystal city to me was kind of dark, and the dome appeared to be dark as well over it.
Sure.
So for the purposes of projecting images, if that's what they're doing inside of this, projecting the stars, and because I know they're projecting some things, I've taken pictures.
Sure.
Would a dark background make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense. As a matter of fact, using a dark structure would actually, from a design standpoint, I think work better than a light standpoint. And for those, if you want a visual thing, think of a television. When your television's turned off, you're looking at a dark glass with a dark thing behind it. You can get a lot more from a projection standpoint, starting from dark and then working out to light, because the default state would be dark. No different than a computer monitor. When it's when you think it's an absence of color, but it's actually, it's so black necessarily. When you see black on a monitor, it's not necessarily black. It's the absence of an image.
Oh,
so
okay.
from a display standpoint, it's more efficient to do it that way.
Well, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I had also asked you in this phone call, because a lot of weird stuff has happened that doesn't make any sense. I went outside. I'm in the big city, so when you go outside, there's 15 stars, and that's it. You go out in the country, and there's 40 billion stars everywhere. So of the 15 stars that we have left here, I was called out about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got kind of like a psychic message: "Come outside. I want to show you something." So I went outside. I'm like, okay. So I look over here, and there's an object blinking blue, red, green, white. I'm like, hey, that's not a star. So I got my professional camera and I zoomed in, and I'm like, that's a spaceship. Oh my gosh. And so I thought, well, there's some other stars over here, and they're blinking kind of funny. Wait a minute. There's Orion's belt. I'm going to see what the stars actually look like compared to what I think is kind of like a spaceship looking thing. Or possibly a satellite, I'm not sure. But okay, I'm going to look at Orion's belt. So I looked at the 3 stars of Orion's belt, and they were spaceships too. They were not stars, they were spaceships. But then I've gone back outside and looked again with, zoomed in to take a picture and all that, and they're stars again. So I couldn't explain that.
It could be that they're all part of the same structure. I've told people this in other things, but I've gone out for years with night vision. And again, for people that have the means, if you can pick up some night vision binoculars, from Amazon, there's several brands out there. I use Night Owl with a 5x power, and you can't get them that powerful. I think 10x is about as powerful as you can go, but don't spend the money on that if you don't have it. The sky is crawling with stuff. I mean, there's so many things flying around up there that people don't see because you can't see them with your naked eye. You can only see them with night vision. Squadrons, and it looks like some days it looks like rush hour. I mean, it's just this amazing amount of stuff that's up there. But what I noticed, kind of like what you were saying, was that when because they were about the same size as stars, as far as the perspective goes, to where I was thinking, if they just threw that ship in park, no one would be able to tell, and then they lit themselves up, no one would be able to tell whether that was a star or if that was a spaceship. So it's I use the joke from the old movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Richard Dreyfuss from years ago, and there was a funny scene in there where the ships were flying across the sky, and they happened to just several of them formed the Big Dipper. And then the Big Dipper kind of slid across the sky, and it was a funny moment. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's what else we can do. And I thought that was a great little inside joke, from the 70s.
Mm. Yeah. We've got another question.
Oh yeah, throw them at me.
If Earth is flat, we got a bunch of questions. And that one guy, he's starting to spam, and all he's doing is just quoting basically sources off the internet that there are flights and all that. So, I don't want to ever when I have to block someone, but I'm having a hard time getting to the other questions, and his questions are starting to become redundant. Yep. So if I'm sorry. I know again, I understand people like that. Look, I understand he's, again, it's, denial straight into anger. And he doesn't want to believe it. Everybody in their own time. Eventually he may come around, he may not, but try not to hate. Yeah.
It's counterproductive.
Try not to spam either, because if people spam, I have to block them because I can't get to all the questions. Sorry. If Earth is flat, are other planets flat too?
Excellent question. And actually, that's a trick question because they're just not there. They may be spheres, but they are not physical objects. So no different than a planetarium. The stars and the planets, while the planets may look round, you're never going to get to them because they don't actually exist as planets, and is at least in my model. And that is from a planetarium standpoint, everything as far as the stars and the planets, because they're so far away, they just look like bigger stars if you're looking at without a telescope.
Yeah, big ones that don't blink.
Exactly. But then you have to combine that with 2 very large objects by comparison, which is the sun and the moon, which happen to be coincidentally just about the same size as far as perspective goes, which is why you get that lunar perspective. Then of course that other funny thing, and that is
we're going to talk in detail about that in a minute.
That we can only see one side of the moon, and it's like, really? So there isn't like a half-degree rotation every 20 years or anything to where eventually it would slowly turn? No, it's exactly the same side of the moon we see at all times, and that's never going to change ever. It's in this weird orbit that but anyway, no, the planets look round, but from a design standpoint, again, you could make them 3-dimensional holographic planets, but they're not there. You're never getting to them. Even if they were there, you're not getting outside the enclosed system. So,
And we talked about the stuff that I learned when I died and your theories and how they complement each other.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have done remote viewing and some of them have had near-death experiences. Like I had a near-death experience and I remote view and astral travel. So I know that there are planets and some of them are manufactured and there are things out there. So I'm trying to think, what have they done? This is my opinion. I don't know. See what you think about my opinion. That
Sure.
if you do have a dome, it's kind of like the was it the Truman Show with Jim Carrey in it?
Yeah.
They had a dome that he lived under, and that dome was pretty much like what it was like on the planet. You had
Absolutely.
a sky and clouds and sun and all that in the dome. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't they make a dome that looks or mimics what is actually out there?
Exactly. Or did that script get let through the cracks, and did that movie get allowed to be made that eventually we would figure it out? Because, it was a well-produced, well-done movie, made a lot of money, and everyone relates to it. And that's the part that kills me. It's like, you say flat Earth, and like that guy that was spamming, he get all upset. But if I say Truman Show, nobody gets mad. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I totally buy into that. It's like, well, that's what we're talking about here. It's the same thing. It's just that instead of a 20-mile wide Truman Show dome, you're talking about something that's thousands of miles wide.
Oh, absolutely. We've also got the moon and the sun involved in this, and the discussion that we had about my travels and what I've come to believe about these things. When I was astral traveling, you were in like the fourth dimension, and so I went to the moon, and they saw me. And when it's not just that they saw me, because you can see ghosts and you can see other things.
Yeah.
They came after me, like physically came after me, as if they never touched me. I popped back into my body before I let them touch me, but they were coming after me to grab me and to take me or to hurt me. I don't know what they were going to do, but they were going to grab me. So that told me that I was in the same dimension that they were in, which tells me that the moon is most likely in the fourth dimension, which other people have confirmed by the things that they know is in the fourth dimension. So Crow 777.
Oh, yes.
Oh, there we go. Yay. I love
know this
Crow.
guy.
He's awesome. I'm trying to get him on my show. But
Yeah.
he shows the moon that there is what appears to be a holographic screen, if you will, over the moon, which
Yeah.
which there's a lunar wave that comes up. It looks like it's refreshing the hologram.
Yeah.
But this makes sense to me because if the moon is in the fourth dimension, then most people on the planet Earth won't be able to see the moon. So they would have to project an image over the moon or put a skin on it in order for you to see it.
Yeah, the holographic, and again, I know the flat Earth people, they cringe every time his name gets mentioned, because officially he's not a flat Earth guy. He's sort of a holographic universe guy. I don't even know what his view is as of late, but his moon footage is better than NASA's moon footage, and
It
that
is.
he hooked up a really nice camera to a decent telescope and just took long-term footage of the moon, and then one day he runs into what appears to be a refresh issue, a display issue with the moon, something you would never catch.
You are into video games, so you understand. Can you explain a refresh?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't find the words. Okay.
Okay, so years ago, and they tried to avoid this. Years ago with movies, if you took a movie camera and you shot a television with it,
yes,
you'd notice you get this vertical hold refresh thing, because the number of times the screen is being drawn on a television isn't syncing up with how many times it's being drawn on a movie camera. And if you're talking 60 frames per second versus 50 frames per second, eventually you're going to get it's going to be out of sync. Which is why you get that weird vertical flickering.
Okay.
So that hasn't happened in a long time because the cameras have gotten a lot better. HD cameras, their refresh rate, everything's way more precise. So what seemed to be happening was, and this, I knew it as soon as I saw it. I was going, there's a refresh issue with the freaking moon. And what was happening was the HD cameras that we have now have reached a point where it seems to be catching up with the technology that's being used to project on the moon, meaning they're very, very similar. So even if we're talking about a percentage of a frame, you're going to catch it because the cameras are detailed enough. And so what was happening was he was getting this weird wave that was going through the moon, and it wasn't the camera. Everyone immediately says, oh, it's the camera. Well, no, because he happened to actually pan up with the camera, and if it was the camera, that wave would have followed the camera, but it wasn't. It was consistent through the moon. And it wasn't just him. Now it's been documented all over the world. You know, he's put the word out there. He's got a bunch of followers, and he's put the word out there, and it's gotten through. But for people that the reason why I mention him, it's like, you know, again, I say it one more time. That is, if anyone has better footage than this guy, I'd like to see it. Because he's got the best footage out there. He's got better footage than NASA. In fact, why NASA hasn't shut him down, I have no idea. But he basically he's proven he's put the moon in doubt. It's like, okay, are you looking at a real moon or are you not? Now, for me, it's still a three-dimensional object with something being overlaid over the top of it. Eric from the Flat Earth, his Flat Earth side, says that that it's two-dimensional. It's somewhat transparent. It's like, I don't care. Either way, the moon is in doubt. And if the moon is in doubt, then the whole thing is in doubt. At that point, you have to question the sun, you have to question the stars, you have to question the planets. Everything starts to fall apart. Not to mention, the entire Apollo moon program just gets shut down, because if you're looking at a refresh issue, then you're not landing on it, because it may be such a small object. If it's only 30 miles wide, you're not landing on a hologram. And especially even if you did land on it, it's not going to look like what you put out in the films, you know, the obvious horrible stuff that they put out. So yeah, the moon is there's something wrong with the moon. People haven't found it. Good. Just look up either lunar wave or moon hologram, or just look up crow 777. You don't even have to spell it right. Most people just put in the real word crow. It's actually CRROW 777. But you can just type in crow 777 and it'll do it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just on a side note, True Seeker, who's a famous spiritual rap artist, he says hi.
Oh, hey.
So yeah,
cheers.
He tuned in. Yay. We've got, and then I've got some more questions pertaining to that. I haven't watched all his videos, but what does he believe to be on the other side of the Earth?
Are we talking at the bottom or just outside the enclosure? What
I'm assuming is maybe what is underneath. Is this a spaceship underneath? Are we floating like what is that movie Avatar, where you've got the mountains that are Hallelujah mountains that are floating?
Yeah. For me, it can go several ways. Obviously, there's some sort of structure underneath. I mean, I think it's a combination of enclosed world and mechanical systems. I talk about it in Clue 6, which is called depth perception, which is like what's underneath it, what's running some of this stuff. For me, there's definitely some mechanical processes that are underneath this. Is there another civilization living underneath this? Very possible. I mean, there's enough myths and legends that have gone throughout the centuries and millennia, that talk about it. Is it the Morlocks? Is it the Chuds? Is it, a race of giants? Don't know. But do I think there's somebody down there? Absolutely. Do I think there's other worlds outside of this world? Absolutely, I do. Matt from the NASA channel, he thinks that, we're part of a much, much bigger section with other worlds that are in pockets. That's, I kind of go back and forth on that, because I don't like to go too far into the Russian stacking doll argument, because I really try to live one world at a time. As far as, oh, by the way, I've got to mention this, because this was one of the last questions, because people said, why have the dome? Here's another thing. Here's a clue. It's like why people couldn't get out. If you could get out and get to another world, let's say you were the elite and you had the ability to do this, you would see some really weird things. And that is because it would be way too tempting to leave this world, which is all messed up, to go to a pristine, wonderful world. What you would see is weird disappearances on the elite standpoint, from the elite side. So you would see weird accidents, like a yacht going down with a whole bunch of congressmen and rich, and you get these weird things where, like, a castle burns down and they had a party with a whole bunch of people, and all these royalty died, because they'd all make up an excuse to get there if they could. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, we're all this video game having fun. Yeah, going back to Crow 777,
Mm-hmm.
he said this is not, just hard science, but think about this concept. And he takes the Earth, and he takes a spot on the Earth that is exactly the same size as a crater on the moon.
Yep.
And you can see with your naked eye, you can see that crater on the moon. And he takes it's a program on the internet where you see what the Earth looks like from a certain distance away. So he's taken a red dot, I guess, and made it exactly the same size. He painted it red so you can see it even easier than the crater on the moon. And then he took the Earth and he went back a certain distance. And he got to a distance that you could no longer see that red dot anymore.
Yeah.
And and when you couldn't see the dot, you were not even as far away as the moon is supposed to be. Which shows that these distances that they're telling us these objects are not true distances. What information do you have about that?
Well, if the moon is 237,000 miles away, there would be, in my opinion, when you look at it with any sort of telescope, or even if you're looking at it with your eyes, we've all had this feeling. We've gone out and looked at the moon. It's like, because there's songs and wonderful poetry about the moon. It looks really close.
It does.
It looks so close. And if you're looking at decent footage, again, look at Crow's stuff or other people. There's other people that have taken decent footage of the moon. The detail you're getting is so good nowadays that you're looking at this and it's like, okay, you're looking at some great detail. Try to resolve that in your head that it's 237,000 miles away. It's really tough to do. But again, from an illusion standpoint, we're susceptible to it. So, that's really all I have on it. I mean, again, when it comes to the moon, I just say, look, there's enough stuff out there to put the moon in doubt. And then once you get past that, there's certain stages you have to go through. But the first one is one of the first ones is, which is why I put it as clue 1, even though nobody ever talks about it, is you've got to get past the moon. You've got to look at the moon and say, look, it is not what you think it is. We didn't land there. It is not thousands of miles wide. It is not 237,000 miles away. It's not what you think it is. And once you can get past that, then the rest becomes much, much easier. Start with something small. Don't start with, are we in a giant Truman Show? Even though that's, it's the ultimate goal. Start with something small like the moon, which supposedly isn't that small, but in my opinion, it is.
Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily a show, but they can see everything that you do. Yeah, they're probably laughing, but
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they're videotaping us and projecting it to all the other places.
Oh yeah, exactly. Why waste it?
Making cosmic money here.
There's a lot of interesting stuff down here.
Oh, absolutely. Hi, Kelly. I heard about Earth being flat and proof of it, but what was the point of lying to us and convincing us that it's round? How does it benefit those who made this lie?
Perfect. There's two parts to that. One is the original lie, which I don't think necessarily was a lie. It was just part of the system. And that was 500 years ago when they said it was a globe. I think that the creator, whoever built this place, I think eventually the globe illusion was supposed to be part of it, which was because it keeps people from running for the fence. You don't run for the walls. You don't run for the prison bars or whatever you want to call it if you don't know they're there. If you can create the globe illusion, then everybody still acts naturally, and nobody starts, because otherwise eventually people would start making these expeditions and be routine. And once they found the edge or whatever it was, a barrier or a marker or whatever it was, they would do it. Human beings naturally will try to go past it. But if you create the illusion of the globe, they're not going to. That being said, though, I think it was part of a natural process that eventually we were going to find out. I think that eventually we were going to, the ultimate goal was eventually we were going to figure out what this was, and the whole thing was going to come off and, it was going to be revealed. But the first people that found out, of course, were the authority, the governments and the elite and the royalty, and they found out.
The ones with the big guns. Yeah,
the ones with the big guns, and they only found out 60 years ago. And then they decided, and I'm not going to say rightfully so, but they did so. It was a knee-jerk reaction, which was why keep the lie going? Are you kidding me? If people found out in the 1950s that it was an enclosed system, there would be a mess for a while. Now, would society end? No, but there would be this weird shift and weird, it would be a big spiritual shift back to spirituality, because it's like, okay, we are protected. We are in a system that we're taking care of, and we're all in the same boat, and no one would fight. There wouldn't be any hate crimes anymore, and it'd be a beautiful thing, in my opinion. They weren't going to deal with that. It was like, you know what? Yeah, we could recover from this and we could adjust the power structure accordingly, but you know what? It's going to be a pain in the ass. So let's just not do it. So it's like, let's just keep it going. Let's just classify the whole thing. Let's seal off Antarctica. Let's create NASA. Let's control the sky, and let's see how long we can keep it going. And they did for 60 years. And so the short answer to her thing is, look, it's men in power. Men in power will do just about anything to hold on to that power. And that they didn't want a disruption in that power, so they just kept it going as long as they could. Now, can they keep it going at this point? I don't know. I think it's starting to crack to the point where, if we do reach that 100th monkey, syndrome, they're going to be in real trouble, and they'll have some things to answer for. It's going to be way harder on them now. Every year that they kept this thing going, artificially kept the lie going, it got, like anything, the spider web thing. It's so hard to come back. It's like having an affair. It's like, oh yeah, having an affair, 6 months, that's one thing. Having an affair for 20 years, oh yeah, that's, you get a whole different reaction.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you go far enough in one direction, will you eventually hit a dome wall?
Yeah. In my opinion, yes. Which is what I think happened. For those of you who hadn't followed the clues, they looked. I believe that the authority, by that I mean the governments, the super rich, the royalty. I think they started looking officially in 1928, and they looked for about 30 years. And at one point in 1954, they were just about ready to give up, to the point where, because they couldn't find it. But yes, the short answer to that question is, would you run into something? Yes, I believe you would. Now, whether it's a solid barrier, whether it's a permeable barrier, is it just a marker that says, do not go any further? Is it big frost giants carrying axes saying you can't go past us? Who knows? But I think there's something stopping us from leaving.
Absolutely. And the fact that they don't want any private agencies going out into space. They would have hit the dome, right?
Yeah, no private space.
Where did this come from?
Because eventually, well, think about it. And again, the coincidences that the amazing coincidence. 1959, a year after NASA was formed, was when they announced the Van Allen radiation belts by Van Allen, who was a NASA employee. At the same time, the exact same year, they also sealed off Antarctica with the Antarctica Treaty. So, again, I said, look, that's about as evident a structure as I can give you. And that is, look, first thing they did was they said, oh yeah, the sky, there's some real dangerous, super horrible radiation belts that nobody should ever go up near. Oh yeah, by the way, we're sealing off Antarctica. No, we can go there. But we're going to leave that story out of the news for the most part. And by the way, no corporation can go down there either. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So does that mean that when we see UFOs, we are looking at an illusion, or do UFOs exist in this enclosure?
Oh, I think they're absolutely real. I wouldn't have gone outside, with night vision through, through freezing temperatures here in Colorado. I wouldn't have been doing it for as many years as I did if I didn't think they were real. But what it does is it changes the context of what they are, because in an enclosed system, they take on a whole different role. So it's not like, it's like, oh, people say, well, this group's from Mars and this is a group from Venus. No. They could be also part of this system. Heck, they could be part of the hollow Earth, as far as we know. They could be coming and going through different, systems that are underneath us, or they could be outside of the dome. Heck, they could be the maintenance team. They could be the janitors. But one thing we do know for sure is they are not currently allowed, via whatever protocols in place, but it's a stiff one, they are not allowed to interact with us on a mass basis. To date, and UFOs have been tracked for thousands of years. People say, "Oh no, UFOs has only been around since Roswell." Well, you're naive, and you really should look back further, because they go back a lot further than that. Um, they're not allowed to land in any town square. Not even a small town, a couple thousand people. Nobody's ever touched down in Main Street, USA, anywhere, gotten out and said, "Hey, I'm here," because there's just too many questions that would be answered, because everyone would run up and everyone would do the same thing. They would say, "Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? Why are we here?" They would asking too many questions. They aren't allowed to do that. So from an enclosed standpoint, it's much more intimate. They're tied in with us. Their relationship is still a mystery. Are they allowed to do certain things with us? Yeah, maybe, but it seems to be fairly isolated. It's not like they're coming down and picking up a school and taking it with them or anything like that. It's usually people in the woods or people in the water, some isolated, no different than what we do in the wild.
So. Here is a really interesting question.
Yeah.
What about meteorites? Do they
Perfect. Glad you asked that.
Throw them at us from the dome? I mean,
yeah. I get that question every week.
Is it their peeps outside of the dome throwing popcorn at us? What's going on?
Meteorites are easy from a design standpoint. They're easy. All you do is you introduce a piece of metal ore at speed via whatever you want, rail gun, or just lobbing it in. But you got to throw it in at a certain trajectory to where the atmosphere, shallow enough to where the atmosphere, because they just burn up, from the friction, and usually explode. They usually just get so hot to the part that they blow up, and then you just got to make sure that you don't aim them at any population centers, which also has never happened since our civilization. I know it's only 5,000 years or so.
I was thinking about that. Here are all these big, huge meteorites, and nothing hits a big building or anything.
Nothing. Yeah, I know. So you say, well, 3/4 of the Earth is water, and some have to hit water. It's like, okay, so where are the tsunamis if they hit water? Now, aside from the Tunguska blast of 1908, which
was in a very remote
part of Russia. Yeah, I think like 2 people died in that thing, and that was massive.
Maybe.
Other than that, but I will say this: if you want to have some fun, look at that meteor that came real close a couple of years ago in Russia, near a population center, and it detonated somewhere close to a fairly big city. There's some weird footage that has come out recently. I don't know if it's doctored or not, but it's very interesting, where it seems like a UFO came down at the last minute and took this thing out. Which
like,
again, it's not
Joe's first day on the job.
Yeah, exactly. As long as it's a perfect system, but every once in a while, depending on who you have running various parts of it, it's like, oh yeah, we'll send a meteor down towards Russia. It's like, hey Fred, where did you send that meteor? It's like, Fred, that's way too close. And it's like, send somebody down there to take that thing out. But that's the closest one I think we've ever had to, because if that thing would have hit the ground, it would have been awful. It was big enough. It would have done some damage, but it didn't. None of them do. So anyway, I'm glad you asked that question, because I get that one every week.
There's a question I'm combining one I saw below and this one as well. Is the dome an actual physical dome, and how is it? And how is it possible for us to leave the dome? By the way, I love you both so much. And also they ask, how can we get off this planet? And I don't know if they mean in our physical bodies or if they mean like when we die,
Okay. Is it a physical dome? Well, if you take NASA's word for it, NASA was the one that, in 1959, they said, well, at very least it's heavy bands of radiation. How they got through it, I have no freaking idea if that was the case, because if it was a radiation belt, then how'd you get through the moon and back if you had no shielding? But that's a whole nother story for another time. What's it made out of?
Cheese.
Take your pick. Heavy element, an element that's not on our periodic table. A heavy water, super dense water. Electromagnetic field. Very possible heavy radiation field. There's all sorts of things you could make it out of. Can we get past it? I do not think we can. However, to our last thing, how can you leave this world? Well, that's the crux of it, isn't it? If I don't believe we were ever supposed to design. I think there were two parts of this, and that was if it is a voluntary system, and I do believe that part of this is, it is a perspective recharge for us. It is part of our life cycle. You know, we're here to get a different perspective, no different than this. You don't know you're in paradise until you go to somewhere that isn't paradise, and this is about the perfect example of something that is the last thing from paradise. Do I think it's hell? No. For some people it is, absolutely. Do I think there's can you get off this world? Yeah. Now the question is, can you do it without dying? That's the tough one.
That is a good question. I'm glad.
It is. No, because I've looked at certain things. There's certain religious symbols and some diagrams out there. I haven't sent them to you yet. But if it is a game, you know, if it is a giant simulation, then we're talking about two different ways. You know, there's obviously, you know, the brass ring. The end goal is, can you get out? Can the civilization solve the code, solve the puzzle? You know, get the 100th monkey thing going, and then the whole thing gets revealed, and nobody, and you know, whoever's here, nobody dies, and you know, it's like, hey, you know, that's it. You know, good night, everybody. You know, and that's the end of the show. Or, you know, you just, you know, by natural causes, you pass on, and then you go to wherever you have to go. But that's the only two ways I can see out of it. Either you solve it or you don't solve it. But either way, no one's staying here forever.
Yeah, I'm not staying here forever. That's for sure.
No.
I'm gonna leave.
I got better things to do.
Next time I'm gonna leave. I'm not coming back. But I'm glad I came back. There were some things I didn't do. This one, I don't know if this is one of those loaded questions. Before you answer this question, I have a teeny bit to say about it. Okay. What educational degrees do you have? I'll get my opinion on that before you even answer. You can have a degree. I call them educated idiots, is what a lot of people are that go to college and get a degree. All they know is what someone else has taught them. They have no independent thinking, no creativity. They can't think on their own. They have to always reference something else that somebody told them instead of discovering it themselves. So in my opinion, a degree, like if you want to form a business, you know, it's good to have one. You don't need one. But how do you feel about degrees anyway? And if you even want to tell what your degree is, if you have one.
The subject. They used to be worth something back in the day.
Yes, they did. They did used to be worth something.
I mean, people really, really cared about them. For me, honestly, it would have been counter. Had I had a degree in astrophysics or astronomy or general physics or geology or hydrology or any of that stuff, I don't think I'd be talking to you right now, because at that point I would have been so conditioned against this idea that it would have mattered. As far as an educational thing, yes, you know, a degree in general business, but this was back, you know, before. I think I was one of the few people in my college that even had computers. My resume, I am not ashamed of in any state, you know, shape. And that is, I did, you know, on top of doing the game development world for 3 years, I taught proprietary software, classroom training, proprietary software for 6 years, department head in 3 different tech support teams, you know, 3 different companies, did data mining for, 3 or 4 years. Everything was on a tech basis. So no, a degree is not going to make any difference. The only thing, in fact, the degree is just going to hurt people in this case. Honestly, if you have an astronomy degree and you're listening to this right now, turn it off. Go outside and play, because you're never gonna get your head around this. So.
Exactly. A degree will get in your way of independent thinking. Now, if you want to just conform to this planet and maintain a broken system, go get a degree.
Now, if you have a degree in like something creative, then fantastic. You know, something in the arts, that'll probably help you. In fact, the more open-minded you are, the more creative you are. If you're a painter, a sculptor, a singer, an actor, any of this stuff, this is going to help you. Because you know, you can plot a graph on this. The more creative you are, the more open-minded you are, the more you are into experimentation, into new, and I know it's cliche to say new forms of consciousness, but the more you are willing to accept ideas that go beyond the norm, that will benefit you in this context more than anything. So,
oh, absolutely, I agree with that.
Which is why I did number 8, creative force, where I talked about the arts, and I said, look, one of the reasons why I think this place was built is that human beings are extremely creative, and we seem to even create more under duress, which is so strange. That the term creative angst. Some of the most fantastic artists in the world out there come from tortured paths. To the point where they're almost breaking, and it's like this energy pent up inside them that they release into the world, and it's an awe-inspiring thing.
We've got a question. How does gravity work? Which is something I kind of,
Gravity for me. Now I know there's going to be people say, well, if it's in space, gravity is not an easy thing, even for scientists now. You could look this up. It's like, what is gravity? Gravity is very, very confusing for a lot of people. But from an enclosed standpoint, there's two different ways you could look at this. I know that Eric and the flat earth people will go down the density road. And that is, well, if it's dense, it's obviously creating, gravity is density. But I think that's too easy. It's not a cop-out. It's just too easy. For me, I look at it this way. I look at it from a magnetic standpoint. Think of it this way. Magnets are based off of metal. So you have one metal that's non-magnetic, and then you have a magnetic metal, and maybe you can charge it electromagnetically. Think about an element that we don't have currently that has a form of molecular magnetism to it. So an element that can not only attract metal, but it can attract wood, it can attract porcelain, it can attract anything. You charge that up. If you have an element like that and can hook it up to some sort of electric system, you can magnetize anything. And if you can magnetize anything, it's literally no different from gravity. We do this in games now, but it's from a physics standpoint. We can basically, in the gaming world, you can create, gravity is what you say it is. And that sounds too easy. It's like, okay, you want to weigh 100 pounds, you weigh 100 pounds. Click, 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 click. You want to weigh 500 pounds, you weigh 500 pounds. It's real easy. Because in the gaming world, it's really a form of molecular magnetism, but you can't see it. So that's what I think gravity is here. And that is, it is literally just a form of magnetism that affects not just metals, but everything. And if you can magnetize everything from below, you can make anything, any weight from below. Does that sort of help?
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is science that backs it up. Our Earth is electromagnetic. Sure. It's made out of electricity. So that basically backs up what you're saying about it, about gravity being electromagnetic energy. So yeah, that makes absolute sense. Hi, and thanks very much. Why is it winter in Australia when it's summer here? That's a good one.
No, that's a common question. The thermal systems that are tied in. All right. There's some wonderful stuff that has been put out in the last 2 weeks on YouTube. You got to check this out, and that is how the thermal systems and the jet stream systems work on a flat map. On a globe, they look kind of cool, but if you're looking on a flat map, they look perfect. And I'm not going to do it justice, but let me say it this way. From a heating and cooling standpoint, it's not all about just the sun. People think, well, because right now that's all the scientists say. Well, it's the tilt of the Earth, and the sun is here, and the sun is there, and we're talking about which is amazing. You're talking about 92 million miles away, and if you're talking about literally just a few 100-mile shift, in angle, and that's going to create the seasons, severely on. So for me, here's what it comes down to. You have, not only do you have the sun, think of it like the interior of a car. So in the interior of a car, you have the air conditioning system, you have the heats in the seat, you have the sun coming through the window, you have the windows themselves you can roll down. Now, apply that to Earth. You've got the jet stream, which is up above. That's the wind currents that travel at a couple 100 miles an hour, depending on where you are. You have the underwater conveyor system, which is in the oceans. That carries the water around, around the world and does the heating and cooling there. You've got the magma systems below the surface, which is all the molten rock, and you have the sun. So now not only do you have one system, you have 4 systems that are creating the weather. So the long way around to getting to your question is that you can make the weather do anything. So if you want to make the summer here and winter there, that's fine. from an enclosed system, weather is very easy to do if you have thousands of miles wide to play with. It's not just like a 20-mile Truman Show thing where it's very limited and you have to do everything at one time. If it's big enough, you can create weather systems in different places. That being said, I think that we've been messing with it recently. I think that part of our systems, first, I think we tried to get out of this thing with atomic weapons. I think the second thing we really worked on was HARP, the HARP system, which in my opinion is really no different than just a glorified weather system. Now, what the HARP system does though is, like, if you brought like a little fan or a portable little air conditioner inside a car, you can mess with local parts of the thing, but it's going to mess up parts of the automated system. So if you create a hurricane here or a tornado here, the system, the general system, the big system, the dome system has to adjust for it, and that gets a little messy. So anyway, the short version, ignore everything else I just said. The short version, because she's going to want this, like, look, if you have a system thousands of miles wide, the weather is dealer's choice. You can do whatever you want with it, but it's not just the sun. If that's what she's asking about, it's not just the sun. It's all the combination of systems. In fact, I blame the jet stream for more of the weather system than I do anything else. So,
yeah, if you want to know about the weather, just move to Texas, because we have desert and we have mountains and we have ocean fronts and we have everything in Texas. Yeah. So I understand the concept of having different weather over here than over here.
But look up the YouTube stuff on weather. Look up like flat Earth weather, and you'll find some neat stuff on that.
I'm writing it down. Flat Earth weather. What are some? Now this goes back to kind of the round Earth theory. I think. There are some that say the center of the Earth, if it is a sphere, the center of the Earth is magnetite or lodestone, which is a magnetic mineral. Is this plausible within the framework of the flat Earth concept?
Okay, for that person, first thing, because I don't think they've seen it, watch clue number 6. That's depth perception. And the first thing I try to tell people is, like, look, you got to get past everything that scientists told you that they're assuming. And the first thing is that they tell you what is underneath the surface is made out of. Because
I know this person and they're into crystals and rocks, and I think that's
gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's why they asked if I think her idea was, okay, if the middle is magnetite, how does this work, I guess, on a flat Earth?
There is all right. First off, you have to make sure that you're completely dismissing the whole globe thing, because if no public company has ever drilled below 8 miles, and supposedly this thing's thousands of miles thick, 8,000 miles thick or something like that, then they don't know anything. It's all speculation. In fact, they're the first ones to tell you in Wikipedia, which is why I quoted it. It's like, look, they are the first ones to say, like, we're absolutely speculating what is below the surface. We don't have a clue. So when they say that originally there was, what did she say, magnetite?
Magnetite.
Yeah, magnetite. They had no clue that it was magnetite. Not at all. As far as how it works in an enclosed system, yeah, there may be some minerals and some ore down there. What exactly it's running on? Is that part of the magnetic gravity system? Yeah, maybe. But it's also going to be mechanical based as well. As far, again, watch clue 6. It talks about the molten systems. I do believe the entire magma system, because people say, well, wouldn't that be a natural process, volcanoes? And it's like, why would you ever take that chance? If you're going to build an enclosed system and make everything from a design standpoint, once you start designing part of it, you never let anything to chance. You're never going to let a super volcano go off on its own and ruin the whole thing. It's part of design. You don't leave anything to chance. So
in all this, when I was in school and they were trying to shovel this down my face, I was like, this is in the center of the Earth. And so I'd ask my teacher, so someone's been to the center of the Earth? They're like, no, that's not possible. I'm like, they don't know what's down there, and it's like, oh, Saturn is made of this. And this is the gravity. How do they know? How do they know that? Have they been there? No.
I thought of that.
How do they know?
Many times. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, Jupiter's got as a gaseous thing, but there's a core of this and this. I was going,
oh, really?
Well, how do you know this? But when you're a kid, it's like, okay, well, maybe they know. You don't expect that it's going to be not true.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you were talking about 8 miles down. The only you ever drilled 8 miles down? I
Yeah.
don't know if you've heard of it. I heard this on Coast to Coast, Mel's Hole. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. So
I have not.
everybody, go look up Mel's Hole, and you'll find Coast to Coast and some other people interviewing. This guy on his property, he found a hole, and it had almost like a collar or something on the top, and I can't remember the dimensions of the hole. I'm completely making this up, but it was maybe
Sure.
like 10 yards or something
Okay.
like that. I can't remember, but he said that people in the village or wherever he lived, the city, they were just throwing all their trash in it, and and they kept throwing trash, and he would look down there. It's like, well, shouldn't you be seeing stuff, by now? So many people are throwing stuff in there. Anyway, long story short, he got like a fishing line almost, but it might have been a rope or a cord. And he went down miles and miles and miles and miles and could not find a bottom to this thing. And then he said, now I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just telling you the story of what, he said. Then he got an animal. I don't remember if it was a sheep or something along those lines that he put down in there, and it transformed these animals and did strange things to them. But anyway, the military came in.
Oh, of course they would.
Basically, I was like, where is this hole? And they took control of it, took possession of it. They blocked it out from you being able to see it with a satellite on Google. You can't see it. And there are other holes known that are around the planet that have no bottom. So I don't know how that ties in.
I'm a little suspicious. When everyone says a bottomless hole, you got to remember 8 miles is a long, long way. When it comes to a hole. Now, I do like the Mel's Hole story. I'm going to look that up because, that's the first thing people would do. The first thing they would do is like, let's just throw our trash in.
Yeah.
Of course they would. And actually dropping an animal down there, I could see that too at one point. Now, as far as the military taking it over, I don't know. Bottomless holes, though, no, I don't believe in them. Now
when they say bottomless, it's like they can't find the bottom. It's what they mean. I mean, it might be at 10 miles, but they can't find the bottom.
Most people are going to give up after a mile. There's 5,000 plus feet per mile. That's a long way. That's a lot of rope. And most people, wouldn't go that far. But I don't know. I mean, for me, 8 miles is still a long way. But regardless, you're not going to be able to go down forever because eventually you're going to run into the artificial system, which is it gets warmer and warmer. The reason why they can't go further than 8 miles is the drill bits start getting too hot and they turn into clay and then they stop working. So, maybe. It's an interesting story, though. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, no traveling to China for a year.
No.
Where can we find out more about your theory? Is the flat Earth in a different dimension?
That's a two-part question. The flat Earth could be covering multiple dimensions. Yes, absolutely, it could. As a matter of fact, there have been several people that that are already discussing it. There's from an enclosed standpoint, there's a wonderful graph out there. I can't remember who did the illustration where it covers 7 or 8 or even 9 dimensions, where it's basically just dome on top after dome on top of domes. And by the way, that kind of reminds me of what you were talking about earlier, where from an astral projection standpoint, even that you would have to limit to a certain point because you wouldn't want too many people going out there and seeing what the world looked like and then came back. Because if you had a consensus, and I don't know how many astral projectors but you guys want to have some fun. Everyone try to go out and see, because up until now it's probably the same thing you did. If you don't have the context to look for it, then you're not seeing it. But from a dimensional standpoint, you would also want to try to severely limit people from seeing it and coming back because, again, if enough people, again, that 100th monkey thing, if enough people figure this out, the game's over. This thing, becomes irrelevant. And then, the whole thing, it's like, it just stops, in my opinion, which is, the ultimate goal, I think, should be for everyone. It's like, look, unless people are really enjoying themselves here, it's like, look, you think it's a fantastic world. That's great. I don't know who you are. But this place, in my opinion, I think civilization has gone about as far as it's going to go. As far as a positive standpoint, moving forward, evolving, being more productive, I think that it's I think we've come to a point now where I think people should see this because it's time. It's time to see it. It's time to open this thing up.
Evolve or die. That's
Yeah, there you
kind of
go.
what we're going to.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm sorry, this question up here, this has to do with the 8 miles and everything. I'm
Yeah.
still drawn to the way Simon Parkes describes these theories as being on different dimensions. Mark indicates in one of the videos that we have never been below 8 miles deep. How thick would flat need to be to also be hollow?
I touched on that a little bit in video 6, depth perception, because people have asked that. It's like, how deep is it? How deep? It's like, well, okay, you'd have to put a minimum depth, as far as people, a floor that people would never get past. So a couple hundred miles would be plenty, because if you can't drill past 8. Now I know the military, you could use atomic weapons and try to punch a little bit past that. And if they did get to a floor, a thing that they couldn't get past, then they're not going to tell anybody anyway. But as far as including a hollow system, not very much. You can. It's amazing what you could. Well, think about it this way: our entire civilization, lives on a thickness that's not even 5 miles high. Our entire civilization lives between 0 and 20,000 feet. That's all we live in. That's a really, really thin wafer of a civilization. So you don't need much to pack in a civilization. So if you even had a cavern, in the under system that had, I don't know, a cavern, let's say 5 miles, 10 miles high, you could put us in there, and again and again, it's easy to do. So again, we need a lot width wise. We need to spread out, but height wise, we don't need much, because nobody flies. We can't fly naturally. We're not birds.
I'm working on it. How about tectonic? This is a good one. How about tectonic plates? Would a flat Earth have plates of a different shape? I watched your video and remember seeing you discuss volcanoes, but what about the plates?
The plates, that when you look at it's going to be odd to try to visualize. Look at the azimuthal equidistant map when you get a chance, and then just overlay. It's going to be tough because nobody's done it. Overlay the plates on top of it. They really don't work that much different from that standpoint. They will stretch and bend to fit that map as well as any globe.
I think so.
Doesn't need much. They still exist, though. Let's put it that way. They are real.
How far up? About where is this? They're calling it a filament, or maybe a dome.
Firmament.
I'm sorry. Oh, firmament.
Firmament. That's from that's the biblical reference from Genesis 1:7.
You're right about that.
Yeah, that's right. The firmament, how high is it? Well, that's one of the big questions, because it seemed like NASA was testing it from 1958 until 1962 with all the rocket shots. There's a ton of debate on this, and for me, it slopes up. It's not very steep. It's not like a snow globe, in my opinion. It's not like a steep, super high arc. It's more like a sports stadium than anything. For me, from a design standpoint, you wouldn't have to make it more than, say, 400 miles high to get away with it. And you're thinking, well, 400 miles high, that's pretty high. No, that's really, really thin. It's really flat. When if we were talking thousands of miles wide, 400 miles. That literally is a sports stadium type of scenario. That's very thin. That's planetarium height.
Mm-hmm. When I looked at it, I know it's a little bit crooked, but
it's very similar.
Yeah, if this is like 8,000 miles wide, then it's not very thick, and this is not very tall.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be, because human beings get altitude sickness starting at barely even a mile and a half. And most of 99% of our population lives below 10,000 feet. So, and that's 2 miles, not even 2 miles. So it does not have to be high at all.
Do you think that they created the Ice Age, or was the dome non-existent at that time? And who created the dome, humans or something else?
No, I do not think we created it. I think whoever created it was much, much more advanced than we are. I mean, yeah, it could be an older version of ourselves. We could be part of all that system. I mean, heck, we could be angels for all we know. But do I think we created it? No. What was the other part of that question?
Do you think that they created the Ice Age? Like, was that part of the video game?
But it was before us. Yeah. All that stuff. I mean, all the old legends about the Ice Age. Let's throw in some floods. Been a few of those referenced in mythology. That's super easy to do in an enclosed system. All you do is you turn on the water and put the plug in the bathtub drain. And that thing, and this thing fills up really quick because all you have to do is raise the sea levels by less than 10,000 feet. And as long as it's held up on the outer edge, you're fine. So yes, I do think the Ice Age was created artificially, and the floods, possible meteor strike, giant meteor strikes before that.
That's a great answer, Mark. Thank you. We got some people thanking you over here. Let's see, to the critics, this is someone putting on there, to the critics, remember the film Hunger Games, they have a dome too. They create day and night, so creatures in nature and events and all that.
Don't think for a second, by the way, that any of the stuff, I am a big believer in predictive programming. Don't think for a second that all the stuff that has been coming out in the last 10, 15 years regarding enclosed systems has been an accident. Again, The Truman Show, Dark City, The Signal, the current CBS show, I think it's still in there, Under the Dome, which came out just a couple of years ago, and I think it's still going. The Simpsons movie, where the entire city was trapped under the dome. The Hunger Games, the whole thing was set under an artificial dome where everyone was entered in and they have to do their thing, and the whole point is to get out. I think that there is a plan in place, a contingency plan in place, even by the authority, even by the people down here, to either, and maybe they haven't made up their mind yet, on either to help reveal this thing or to create an event to distract us from it. And there's only a couple of events big enough that I think you could do that, be it, some sort of global catastrophe or world war or whatever it is. But yeah, I think that slowly but surely they've been releasing these things into the population to get people ready for one way or the other.
Now, this question, I guess I have a question beyond this question, but this put me in the same area of the airplanes, because you went in great depth in your videos about the airlines and airplanes. Yep. And it made sense to me.
I didn't want to, but I ended up doing it. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you start measuring, it's like, wait, this isn't measuring correctly.
Yeah.
That's just the measuring. That's not even that it disappears off the GPS, or why do you have to be rerouted 14 times to get to a straight line? Plane trips to China make a very high arch. I'm sorry, is it just going straight? I always thought it was weird. Are the planes just going straight?
Most of the time they are. Look this up, because it happens in the northern hemisphere too. It's not just the southern hemisphere. I could have made an entire video on the north hemisphere, but it wasn't as exaggerated as the south. But so if you're talking about flying from like the United States to China, or it doesn't really matter, there's a video online. It came out after mine. Somebody was inspired enough to make it. It's called Plane Routes Exposed. Check that out when you get a chance. There's also a couple other plane videos on my channel under my playlists. I don't have many playlists, but there's one called Flat Earth Related. Check out the plane videos in there. But yeah, absolutely. It's weird because once the route, because it seems like it's taking an arc, when you're looking at a normal map. Mm-hmm. But when you switch it to a flat map, it flattens out and it becomes straight. Even in the northern hemisphere. There's no reason, like for example, when you fly from say San Francisco to Japan, why are you hugging Alaska, the entire, and all that? Why are you going up this big north route? And they say, oh, because it's the curvature of the Earth. Yeah, but if you put that on the AE map, it's a straight shot. It's how you have to go, and most of the time that's what happens. It's a fantastic thing. Or the example, I'll use the South one because people will remember this. But again, there's videos out there, that have come out recently, and that is when you're going from Sydney, Australia to Buenos Aires or Rio. Why in the world are you connecting through San Francisco? There is no reason to go from, to go all the way up here on a globe and all the way back down here. But if you flip it on a flat map, it's literally almost a straight line. And if you think, that doesn't happen by chance. you have to see it, believe it, but it's true. It happens all the time. And the other thing, which another video I put out where they say, well, there's nonstops in the southern hemisphere. It's like, oh yeah, look, social media has changed all that, because what's happened was there's people been flying these nonstops. There's a few nonstops in the southern hemisphere, but what they're saying, people are on Twitter and Facebook, they're saying, oh yeah, there was this nonstop, but we stopped at this island for fuel. Or we stopped at this place for fuel. So what the airlines do, and they don't tell anybody, is in a lot of these cases, as long as people don't get off the plane or get back on, it still counts as a nonstop. So the ticket will show nonstop, from here to here. So, but if you land in a particular airport and nothing happens there except for maybe getting fuel or whatever it is, it's still. And so people got kind of bent out of shape about that. It's like, why do we stop for fuel for 2 hours at this one place? And yeah, it's ridiculous.
Very, very interesting. Am I going to run into anything going from Texas to Peru? Anything I need to look for, or am I safe? Just going basically straight down.
Yeah, Texas Peru is not going to do much. You're not going to. It's mostly the on a normal map, east west, west east type stuff. But north south is not going to. You're not going to see that much.
Oh, that is
usually
cool.
When you cross an ocean, is where you'll see it.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you believe that this will ever become common knowledge, or will it stay knowledge to the select few? Are we meant to break out of this dome or the Truman Show, or is this meant to be our home and safe haven?
No. And then I know we're running out of time, right?
We're doing okay. I have up to 8 hours, so we can fudge a few minutes. So
okay. So no, that's an excellent question. And that is, wait, what was the first part of the question?
I'm sorry. Do you ever believe that this will become common knowledge, or just stay? Okay.
I do
too. I really do too.
That is absolutely my goal at this point. Initially I start out, just trying to get the word out. Look, I was just postulating a theory, but now I believe, and I know I've said it before in the show, and that is, I believe this should become the 100th monkey case, where I think we're supposed to get out of this thing eventually. In fact, I think we were supposed to get out years ago, but for whatever reason, it's been delayed. And eventually, if enough people know and enough people accept this is going to become common knowledge. And if enough people look at the world in a different way, again, the world changes. The world becomes so much more intimate and so much more connected. And we all become, again, not the kumbaya moment thing, but we all become a family. And that is, we're all in this together. The wars stop. The hate crimes stop. Are you really going to are you going to continue doing bad things if you know that you're in an enclosed system where somebody up there is looking after you, maybe not watching you the entire time with a scorecard going, oh, he picked his nose, one of those things, but maybe something more subtle than that? Are you really going to take that chance? So yes, I absolutely do think that eventually it's going to get out there. Whether the authority does it or the builders themselves do it, that I don't know. But when it does happen, everything changes instantly. When people all of a sudden accept it, and of course, if the proof ever came out, whether it be artificial, whether somebody creates a smiley face in the sky, or a spaceship comes down somewhere, or part of the dome opens up and we see something else, I don't know, but I'm going to do whatever I can to get that message out there, because it's the only conspiracy I know of. Most conspiracy stuff is such doom and gloom and horribleness and man doing awful things to each other. But this is the only one that I know of that could actually be turned for the benefit of us, all of us. And if that can be done in any way, I'm going to do it.
We are divergent. We got some movie watchers here.
Nice.
Don't forget Maze Runner. Someone put. Oh man.
Also good.
Let's see. We don't know if anything can penetrate it or not. It might be a semi-permeable membrane. I don't know.
Possibly.
I was able to go through it.
Possibly. Again, my only argument there is, once people just figure out they can leave, like us, like you and me, anyone's listening to this, it's like, look, if you could get out, you're going at this point, because you know what this world's like. Again, it's not the most friendly, wonderful place there is. You're going to take the chance and bug out if you can. So if you can't, which is why, if it was permeable, there'd be a lot of elite people that would leave. They would have already left by now. You'd get these routine disappearances on a regular basis, or better yet, you'd have this one day where they would just all of a sudden just everyone would leave at once, and no one could figure out where all the presidents go.
Left behind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd get this weird fake rapture thing, which would be awful.
That might be why they have that out there, because you never know, they might do that. And never know. I looked up his videos. I looked up his videos after you told us about him, and my mind was blown away. I just sat there with my mouth wide open while seeing his videos, sending some virtual cookies your way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and she's mentioning that because I actually asked for cookies, and I do that at the end of my interviews and shows now. I don't say it, I just put it in the corner. I say send cookies, and I put my home address, and I'm hoping that NASA sends me cookies one day, or to the Department of Defense. But
I wouldn't eat them. No, I don't eat those cookies.
Well, you know, people, my mom said that when she saw that in my thing, she sent me an email. She goes, "Don't eat the cookies." I go, "Come on." I go, it's a question of faith. I have actually received one cookies from my co-host from my show, and he sent me cookies, and I ate those. But what was the question?
Oh, it's just that they were just sitting here.
No, I get that all the time. People email me and they say, "Oh yeah, mind blown." That's like fantastic, great. I was not going for that. I initially was just trying to propose it, but I understand, you know. And it was easy. It's easy for me to say that because I was the one that was working on it for all those months, and so my mind wasn't necessarily blown as much as I was banging my head on my desk, going, "Cannot be true! It cannot be true." But
I know, that's what I was thinking. You know, it's like I've got a bunch of crap to deal with right now. This is the last thing I want to deal with. That the Earth is flat and not round. Really?
Yeah, but at the same time, it doesn't really change. I mean, it changes everything, but it doesn't change. It doesn't change your daily life that much. I mean, yeah, for me, again, it becomes much more intimate. You know, there are stars, there are planets, our sun and moon. You know, everything's really, it becomes really like a comfortable giant studio apartment at that point, and you know, it just becomes way friendlier, because at that point everybody's locked in to the same place, and it's not like they're locked in, you know, just on their own. They're locked in, and you know, there's someone watching you. Mm-hmm. At least we hope there's somebody watching us.
The ones who are psychic and follow, you know, the UFO and the ETs, and Dolores Cannon, you know, God rest her soul. She talked a lot about this, how this is what they call a prison planet. So the concept was already out there of we're imprisoned on some level. Some people say, oh, there's a quarantine on this planet. No one can come in, no one can come out. This concept of prison planet has been here for a very long time. So I don't think it would be too far of a stretch for the ones that already know that we're, I don't know, imprisoned is a terrible word to say, that instead of it just being a round prison, that it's flat.
Sure.
I don't think that's a huge leap for them to take. And
again, I agree with the prison planet concept, but I think it should also be thrown in that it's a voluntary.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like you were punished and it's like, oh yeah, you have to go here. You know, I think this is part of our own voluntary learning process. And, you know, it's like, you know, we go in, it's like, you know, again, going on a giant amusement park ride where, you know, I mean, when you go on a roller coaster, yeah, you're excited, but you know, there's parts of that roller coaster ride you're not going to enjoy. You know, it's like, oh, this is going to suck. But you do it anyway. You pay your ticket, you get on. It's like nobody's holding you at gunpoint to get on that roller coaster.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And just, you know, I kicked myself for 2 years when I died and I was like almost gone. Yeah. And I was like, no, I have to go back. And I'm like, why did I do that? So yeah, I know being here right now for the last 4.5 years was definitely my choice, but I, you know, understand on a higher level. Of course, I chose to be here. Now, all of these people they were talking about, and see if this is a concept that makes sense to the, you know, things being in other dimensions and having an enclosed system. What I discovered basically, and other people did as well, is when you die, and dying is like waking up. Yeah. When you're first starting to wake up, you're very groggy, and that's when they suck you into that tunnel and it gets you into that.
Oh yeah,
I call that involuntary reincarnation. So, and they put you right back here.
Absolutely. Think about think about our birth. Think about how we get here. There's one way in, and it's foggy. And when you're growing up as a child, you don't know everything. There's not this moment of clarity when you're 3 or anything like that. There's this weird kind of, you're adjusting to the system. And then, you kind of get it, when you're in your teen, but you're always learning. And then finally, when you start figuring things out, you're in so far, and then there's lots of ways to leave. There's one way in, there's 1,000 ways to leave technically, but it just seems so very deliberate. And I know the scientists out there are going, no, it's a complete random thing and evolution and all this. Like, no, man, no, it just seems that way. And that's part of the process. We're supposed to, there's some of us that are gonna think that it's random, but it's not. It's not random. It's completely designed. It is perfect in its function. And even though there are many days where I'm like going, oh, why am I still here? But I totally get it.
Oh, we all do. Oh. We all do.
Yeah.
Why am I here? It's hard. The next day gets better. The next day. Yeah. This absolutely explains, because there are kids in school that are so highly intelligent and they can't figure out, why don't I understand this? It doesn't make sense. That are listening to this right now going, oh, I knew it the whole time. And that's why I hated school. It's because I didn't know what the lies were, but I knew they were lying to me, although I didn't know what the truth was. And now it's making sense for them.
Yeah, it's a subtle thing. Again, not to beat on the clue that I did was, you put a globe in a classroom in your first grade. You just leave it there, and that's all you have to do. You don't even have to really do much to it. And the kids just, they'll play with it every once in a while, and they look at it for 12 years. That's high school, and then you get out of high school. That's all you even really need. You get out, it's like, that first reaction. I just love it when I say, well, how do you know the Earth's a globe? And they go, duh, we know it's a globe. I'm just going, really? How do you know? How do you know it's a globe? And then they get stuck. Then they say, well, because NASA told us. I was going, really? Is that what they told you? And they just, again, because nobody owns a spaceship. Nobody knows. Nobody's going to check it out for themselves. You're lucky. You can astral project. But most people, they're stuck with what people, they believe what they're told. And this one's a big one. It's the biggest one I could think of.
Mm-hmm. So. And that's why I teach them to astral project, so they can go and look at stuff themselves. So some of them said they did astral projection, and they saw that the Earth was a sphere. So I'm wondering if I didn't remote view instead of astral project, because you can, understanding how things work, you can be shaped one way in one dimension, and you can be a sphere in another dimension. Ah. And that's how they travel, is in spheres. I mean, you probably know how those work, the spheres. Yeah. And that's just how we roll. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for being on my show. I'm so glad
I had so much fun. It was great.
I'm so glad. And then I would love for you to come back and to, ask more questions and enlighten us some more. Is there anything that you want to end with? Because I need you to shoot me your information so I can get all of that in the description for everyone.
Okay. Well, other than, you don't even have to look on YouTube. If you Google Flat Earth clues, doesn't matter how you spell it, it's going to come up. At this point, because they're being mirrored all over the place. I put Creative Commons license, I think, on everything, so people can just rip apart my videos and share whatever I want. And so far, that's what's been happening. My email address, if you have questions, is just msargent23@comcast.net. And really, other than that, the only thing I try to tell people nowadays is like, look, we're all in this together. So, the 10 commandments, that's one thing, but really, if you want to boil it down to one mantra, it's treat others better than you treat yourself. If you can follow that, if more people did that, the world would be a much, much better place. And I think we got a chance here at doing something great.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great way to end. So you guys, if you want Mark to come back, put it in the comments, give it a thumbs up and put it in the comments that you want him to come back, and we'll see if he can make some more time in the future to answer any more questions. Thank you so much, Mark, for coming on here and clarifying this and making it tangible for everybody. And I'm sure after they watch your videos, even if they don't believe, they're going to have a lot more questions than they had before. So, all right, guys, thank you for joining us on this show. And I guess we will see you on the next video. Bye.